Amy sat beside her apartment window, watching the San Francisco skyline glow against the evening sky while her coffee slowly lost its warmth. Her sister's sharp tone echoed through the phone. "Please don't embarrass me tonight," Laura said, full of the same superiority Amy had grown up hearing. "Ryan works at Nexra AI and his colleagues will be there. Just blend in, okay?" Amy whispered, "I'll blend in." But Laura kept going. "And don't talk about your startup. Nobody needs another failed tech dream. These people are important." Amy stared at her untouched coffee and said nothing at all. Amy arrived at Prospect Restaurant a few minutes early, entering the elegant space where powerful people made quiet deals over dim lighting and expensive meals. She had been here before with investors, yet tonight she was simply Laura's little sister. Laura greeted her with a quick scan of her outfit and a disappointed sigh. "You're here," she muttered, fixing her lipstick. "Ryan will be late. Big meeting." Amy nodded. Laura leaned closer. "So, how's the job search?" Amy replied softly, "I'm not searching." Laura sighed again. "Right. The startup. Still working in that small garage." Before Amy could answer, Ryan arrived with 3 confident colleagues dressed in polished suits. Laura's face brightened instantly. She quickly introduced Amy, adding, "She's between things right now, but I told her Nexra is always hiring." Amy smiled politely while one of the men laughed about small startups. "They think they can compete." "It's adorable," he said. Laura shot Amy a nervous warning look, praying she wouldn't speak. Amy kept calm and asked simple questions. Then Ryan's phone buzzed. His posture changed. "The CEO wants all executives in for a Monday morning meeting," he announced. After dinner, Laura walked beside Amy toward the valet stand, still clutching her world of appearances and status. "Thank you for coming," she said in a tight voice. "And for not making things uncomfortable. Ryan's colleagues notice everything." Amy nodded quietly. Laura continued, "You don't understand how this world works. People judge who you sit with, what you wear, what you say." Amy whispered, "I'm happy for you, Laura." But Laura wasn't finished. "Ryan is moving up fast. His boss loves him. He could be in top leadership soon. You need real stability, Amy." Amy stepped into her Tesla as Laura pretended not to see it. Amy drove home through familiar streets, passing offices where she had pitched ideas, passing the small garage where her dream had begun 7 years earlier. Because Amy was not the struggling dreamer Laura believed she was. She was the founder and CEO of Nexra AI, the very company Ryan worked for, the company Laura admired from far away like a kingdom she could never enter. Amy had built it with 2 classmates, growing it from 3 people to hundreds. Now she had acquisition offers above $800 million. But her family never asked, never listened, and never truly saw her. Sunday morning, Amy sat at her dining table reviewing the board meeting documents she had requested from her team. She studied the financial charts, the expansion notes, and the acquisition proposals. Every choice mattered now. "We need to finalize the European plan," she whispered to herself while marking the slides. Her assistant, Susan, messaged her, confirming that all board members would arrive on Monday morning. Amy leaned back and thought about Ryan, who had no idea she was his CEO. She wondered how he would react when he finally realized. Somewhere in the city, Laura was probably panicking already. On Monday morning, fog covered San Francisco as Amy dressed in her fitted black suit, ready for one of the most important meetings of the quarter. Her driver picked her up at 7:30 a.m., allowing her to read through final notes on the way. When she reached Nexra's tall glass headquarters, she entered through her private elevator, rising straight to the executive floor. Susan greeted her warmly. "Good morning, Amy. Coffee is ready." Everyone confirmed, including the new hires. Amy nodded. "Thank you, Susan." She stepped into her office, the walls filled with photos of the company's long journey. By 8:50 a.m., Amy walked into the boardroom, where leaders and board members were settling into their seats. Tom and Kevin greeted her respectfully while Linda arranged her financial documents. The new executives sat nervously at one end of the table, unsure of what to expect. Ryan was among them, talking quietly until he noticed Amy taking the head seat. His eyes widened in shock, the color draining from his face. Amy pretended not to notice, keeping her voice steady. "Good morning, everyone. Let's begin." She introduced the agenda, fully aware of Ryan's stunned expression across the table. As the meeting progressed, the CFO, Linda, walked everyone through the company's recent numbers. Revenue is up 340% year-over-year, she explained. The board discussed whether to push for a Q2 IPO or delay until Q4. Amy added thoughtful questions, guiding the discussion toward long-term value. Ryan sat stiffly, unable to take his eyes off her. They moved into European expansion plans next. Our team is ready for full compliance, Kevin assured the room. Amy agreed. Then we proceed. Her calm leadership filled the room, while Ryan looked like someone discovering a truth he was never prepared to face. When the meeting ended, executives began gathering their things. Ryan hesitated, then slowly approached her desk like someone walking toward a cliff. Miss Harper, he stuttered. I didn't realize. Amy looked at him with a professional smile. Most people don't unless they read tech news. Ryan swallowed hard. I said some things at dinner. Things I wouldn't have said if, she interrupted kindly. You didn't know who I was. And you weren't wrong about most startups. Nexra simply grew. Ryan lowered his eyes. I hope this won't affect my job. It won't, she replied. Ryan stood there nervously, still gripping the folder in his hand. Amy watched him with calm professionalism. After a long pause, he whispered, Laura is very upset. She feels embarrassed. Amy nodded slowly. I expected that. Ryan hesitated. She said she had no idea you were, well, you. Amy folded her arms gently. She never asked, Ryan. Not once. He sighed. She wants to know why you didn't tell her. Amy looked out the window. Because she never wanted to hear the truth. She preferred the story she created. Ryan lowered his gaze, unable to argue with that. Later that afternoon, Amy finally returned her mother's call. Her mother answered immediately. Amy, why didn't you tell us you were running a company worth billions? Amy sat back in her chair. I tried, Mom. Her mother sounded offended. When? We always ask about you. Amy shook her head. No. You ask Laura about me. And you ask when I'll find a real job. The line went quiet. Then her father's voice came through. We're confused, Amy. We thought you were working on a small computer project. Amy said softly, I was. 7 years ago. Then it grew. Her parents struggled to understand. Her mother said, but we never meant to ignore you. Amy closed her eyes. Intentions don't erase years of not listening. Her mother sighed. Your sister is devastated. She says you embarrassed her. Amy's voice stayed even. How did I embarrass her? I sat at a dinner and listened to people describe my company while she introduced me as someone between jobs. Her father tried to defend Laura, but Amy stopped him gently. You believed her picture of me because it was easy. Because it kept the family story simple. Silence followed. That evening, Amy turned off her phone to focus on her work. She reviewed notes for the next day's executive meeting, preparing for product decisions and upcoming deadlines. She reread the draft of a message she planned to send to the entire company after the IPO announcement. She added a line, never let anyone shrink your worth because they can't see who you are. After sending it, she looked around her office filled with years of work, late nights, and victories no one in her family had ever acknowledged. For the first time, she felt both proud and tired. The next morning, the executive team gathered again. Tom gave updates about the new AI features, while Kevin presented hiring goals for the next quarter. Ryan participated quietly, careful and respectful. After the meeting, he approached Amy again. I spoke to Laura, he said softly. She's angry, but she's confused too. Amy nodded. She built her identity around being the successful one. Now the story has changed. Ryan exhaled heavily. She asked me to quit my job. Amy raised an eyebrow. Are you going to? Ryan shook his head firmly. No. This job is the best opportunity I've had. Amy watched Ryan carefully as he stood in her office, shifting uncomfortably. She said, I'm choosing you over her, he admitted. Amy leaned back in her chair. You're choosing your career, Ryan. That's not the same thing. He nodded slowly. I told her I respect you, that you're my boss. But she didn't like that answer. Amy sighed. Laura sees people through status. She always has. Ryan looked troubled. I didn't realize how much until this week. Amy gave him a thoughtful look. Sometimes it takes a shock for people to see clearly. For all of us, really. After Ryan left, Amy finally took a short break, staring at her reflection in the window. She remembered the early days when she coded for 12 hours straight, living on instant noodles and ambition. Nobody back then, not her parents, not her sister, believed anything real would come of her dream. Her phone buzzed again. More missed calls from Laura, more texts from her mother. Amy placed the phone face down on her desk. She had decisions to make, employees to lead, and a company preparing for an IPO. Family drama could wait. Work could not. Not today. Later that afternoon, Amy walked into the conference room where the Goldman Sachs team was waiting. Their lead banker smiled widely. "Amy, we believe moving forward quickly will give you the best valuation." Amy stayed firm. "We won't rush. Nexra must be stable, not just exciting." The banker nodded, though reluctantly. "Investors love your story," he said. "MIT background, 7-year journey, strong leadership. People buy into that." Amy replied calmly, "I want them to buy into our results, not a headline." They spent hours discussing risk, timing, and projections. By the end, Amy felt drained but steady. When Amy finally returned home that evening, she sat in silence before unlocking her phone again. There were more messages from her parents, each more confused than the last. And several from Laura, ranging from anger to sadness. One message stood out. Laura had written, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me speak like that in front of everyone? You made me look foolish." Amy read the words slowly, feeling a mixture of disappointment and sympathy. She whispered to herself, "I didn't make you look foolish, Laura. Your assumptions did." But she didn't reply. The next day at work, Ryan approached her again, this time calmer. "I talked to my therapist," he admitted quietly. "I needed help sorting all of this out." Amy nodded approvingly. "That's good." He continued, "I'm starting to understand that Laura doesn't see people. She sees rankings. And I let that influence how I treated others." Amy gave him a steady look. "Awareness is the first step." Ryan exhaled deeply. "I'm grateful to be here, Amy. This company feels real. It feels like substance." She smiled softly. "That's what we're building, Ryan. Something real." When Amy finally called her parents again, her mother answered with a trembling voice. "Amy, your sister is in tears. She says she doesn't understand anything anymore." Amy sat down slowly. "Neither do I, Mom. But none of this is new. I've been doing this work for years." Her mother sounded hurt. "We thought you were struggling. We thought you needed help." Amy let out a long breath. "You thought that because you never asked real questions." Her father joined the call. "We didn't know what to ask." Amy whispered, "You could have started with my name." Her mother tried again. "Amy, why didn't you correct us? Why didn't you tell us you were successful?" Amy rubbed her forehead. "Because every time I tried, someone changed the subject. You would talk about Laura's promotion. Dad would talk about golf. Nobody listened." Her father sighed softly. "We didn't mean to overlook you." Amy stayed quiet. Her father added, "We should have known." Amy shook her head. "Knowing requires paying attention." Silence filled the line before her mother spoke again, her voice breaking. "We want to understand you now. But we don't know how." Amy answered gently. "Start by treating me as a person, not as the sister who needed fixing." Her mother whispered, "We only wanted to help." Amy responded softly, "But you weren't helping. You were reinforcing a story that wasn't true." Her father finally said, "We're sorry, Amy. Truly." Amy felt her chest tighten. She didn't know whether it was comfort or grief. "I need time," she said. "And I need space to decide what a healthier relationship looks like." Her mother sniffled. "We understand." Amy ended the call, feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. The next morning, Amy walked into the office early. Susan greeted her warmly. "Your schedule is full today, but I left breathing space before the all-hands meeting," Susan said. Amy smiled. "Thank you. I'll need it." She stepped into her office and organized the documents for the IPO announcement. She studied the wording carefully. It needed to inspire confidence without creating chaos. Tom knocked gently before entering. "We're ready when you are," he said. Amy nodded. "Let's make this clear and honest." She took one last breath, preparing to stand before nearly 1,000 employees. The all-hands meeting began with the entire company gathered in the main auditorium, their energy buzzing through the room. Amy stepped onto the small stage as cameras streamed the event to remote workers. 7 years ago we began as 3 people in a garage, she began. Now we are preparing for an IPO. Applause erupted. Amy raised her hand gently. But I want to remind you, our value isn't in numbers alone. It's in the problems we solve, the teamwork we uphold, and the trust we earn daily. Employees nodded, inspired. For the first time, Amy felt fully seen. After the meeting, Ryan approached her with a thoughtful look. That speech was powerful, he said quietly. Amy smiled. Thank you. Ryan continued, I've been thinking about everything that happened. About how I judged people too quickly. Amy nodded. We all do sometimes. He hesitated before adding, I ended things with Laura. Amy blinked. Are you sure? Ryan nodded firmly. She doesn't see me. She sees what I represent. And I don't want to build a future on that. Amy placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you made the brave choice. Ryan looked relieved. Later that afternoon, Amy received another message from Laura, this one short and filled with pain. Ryan left me. He said I don't see people clearly. Is that true? Amy stared at the words, unsure how to respond. She typed and deleted several messages before choosing silence. She needed Laura to face reality without leaning on excuses. Instead, Amy went back to her work, refining timelines with Tom and discussing budget strategies with Linda. The world kept moving, deadlines kept approaching, and Amy reminded herself that she couldn't pause her entire life for someone else's crisis. By the time Amy finished her meetings, she felt exhausted. She stood by her office window watching the city lights flicker below. She thought about Laura, angry, confused, embarrassed. She thought about her parents, lost in a story they didn't know how to rewrite. Amy whispered to herself, everyone is learning at their own pace. Susan knocked gently. Your last meeting cancelled. You have a free hour. Amy nodded gratefully. Thank you. She sat down and allowed herself to breathe for a moment, letting the weight of the week settle without crushing her. That evening, Amy listened to a new voicemail from Laura. Her sister's voice was softer, smaller. Amy, please call me. I'm trying to understand everything. I'm reading about Nexra. I'm reading about you. I had no idea what you built. There was a long pause before Laura continued. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just ashamed. I treated you like someone who couldn't be more than a failure. And you became more than I ever imagined. Amy replayed the message twice. For the first time, Laura sounded honest, unfiltered, and deeply human. Amy sat quietly after listening to the voicemail. She finally whispered, maybe she's ready. But she didn't call back immediately. Healing needed intention, not urgency. She prepared dinner while thinking about the years of distance and the quiet bruises left by constant dismissal. She knew Laura was struggling, but she also knew that growth required discomfort. Amy washed her hands, looked out her kitchen window and murmured, if she wants a real relationship, she'll try again. Then she placed her phone on the counter, determined not to rush. Some things had to unfold slowly, piece by piece. 2 days later, Amy received another message from Laura, this one clearer and steadier. Can we meet? No pressure. I just want to understand you, not the version I created. Amy stared at the words for a long moment. She picked up her phone, finally replying, coffee next Tuesday. Neutral place. Just us. Laura answered almost immediately. Thank you. Amy set the phone aside and breathed deeply. She knew this meeting could open old wounds, but she also knew healing required both sides to show up. For the first time, she felt Laura might truly mean it. Tuesday arrived warm and bright. Amy reached a small cafe in North Beach, choosing a quiet table by the window. Laura arrived moments later, her expression nervous but sincere. Hi, she said softly. Amy nodded. Hi. They ordered coffee and sat in silence for a moment before Laura finally spoke. I've been reading everything about Nexra. Everything about you. I didn't recognize the person I found. Amy folded her hands gently. Because you never asked who I was. Laura lowered her gaze. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed at how blind I was. Laura continued slowly. I built my identity around being the successful one, the one everyone praised. And you became the piece that made me feel safe by comparison. When that broke, I didn't know who I was anymore. Amy listened carefully. You weren't wrong for wanting to feel successful, Laura. But you were wrong for needing me to be unsuccessful. Laura wiped her eyes. I know. And I hate that I treated you like that. Amy softened. You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. Laura nodded. I want to learn. And I want to know you. They talked for nearly 2 hours, sharing honest stories they had never exchanged before. Laura explained the pressure she felt growing up, always needing to be perfect. Amy explained how invisible she felt, always expected to fall short. For the first time, their experiences overlapped instead of competing. I don't want to compare anymore, Laura whispered. I just want to have a real sister. Amy gave a small smile. Then start by seeing me clearly. Laura looked directly at her. I see you now. Strong, brilliant, kind. And for the first time, Amy believed her. When they stood to leave, Laura hugged her tightly. Nothing performative, nothing forced. Just real. Thank you for giving me another chance, she whispered. Amy nodded gently. Thank you for taking it. They walked out into the sunshine, not as rivals fighting for approval, but as two women trying to rebuild something they never truly had. As Amy watched her sister walk away, she felt something shift, something fragile but hopeful. She knew the work wasn't over. Healing never happened in one conversation. But for the first time, the door was open and both sides wanted to walk through it. Weeks passed and Nextra's IPO plans moved quickly. Amy worked closely with Tom, Kevin, and Linda as they finalized documents, prepared financial reports, and structured the public offering. Susan kept her schedule steady and organized, aware of how much pressure rested on Amy's shoulders. Meanwhile, Laura continued trying, sending messages that weren't about drama or comparison, but genuine curiosity. What does your day look like? She asked once. What do you enjoy most in your work? Amy smiled at the change. She answered honestly, grateful that the conversations finally felt real, unfiltered, and human. On the morning of the IPO, Amy stepped onto the floor of the NASDAQ exchange with her co-founders and leadership team. The cameras flashed, the room hummed, and the giant screen behind them displayed Nextra's opening price. Investors watched eagerly while employees celebrated around the world. Amy glanced at her parents standing nearby, wide-eyed and amazed. For the first time, they looked at her with genuine curiosity, not confusion. Her father whispered, "We're proud of you, Amy." Her mother nodded tearfully. "We see you now." Amy smiled softly. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Laura stood a few steps away, watching the scene with a quiet, emotional expression. When the opening bell rang and the stock price began to climb, she approached Amy slowly. "You did it," she whispered. Amy nodded. "We did it. All of us who built this." Laura looked down. "I used to think success meant being praised. Now I think it means being true." Amy touched her hand gently. "It's both sometimes." Laura gave a small laugh. "I'm still learning." Amy replied, "So am I." And in that moment, the distance between them felt smaller than ever. After the celebration, Amy stepped aside to take a breath. Ryan approached her with a respectful smile. "Congratulations," he said. "You deserve every bit of this." Amy nodded. "Thank you, Ryan." He continued, "Breaking up with Laura was painful, but it taught me a lot. I see things differently now." Amy nodded. "Growth is difficult sometimes." Ryan glanced toward Laura. "I hope she keeps growing." "She's trying." Amy followed his gaze. "She will. She's learning to see people clearly now." Ryan smiled and returned to his team, leaving Amy with a sense of closure she didn't expect. That evening, Amy returned home and finally allowed herself to rest. She sat by her window, looking at the city that had shaped her, challenged her, and eventually celebrated her. She thought about the journey, the garage, the doubts, the dismissals, the victories, the tears, the rebuilding. She thought about Laura, her parents, her team, and all the people who finally saw her clearly. Amy whispered to herself, "Substance over story. Always." She smiled softly. Because she had built something real. She had learned to be seen. And for the first time in her life, she felt complete.